If you've ever walked through a medieval town, stepped inside an ancient barn, or studied the beams of a centuries-old church, you may have noticed something unsettling. The wood is still there. Not fragments, not replacements. Original timbers exposed to rain, insects, frost and soil for hundreds of years, still carrying weight. Meanwhile, modern pressure-treated lumber often rots out in 20 or 30 years. This wasn't accidental, and it wasn't luck. Medieval builders knew exactly how and why wood decays, and they developed a system that quietly defeated rot long before chemicals or industrial treatments existed. What they created wasn't just durable wood. It was wood engineered to be hostile to decay itself. Today, that forgotten system can still be used by anyone building fences, sheds, garden structures, or long-term outdoor projects. Medieval builders understood rot as a biological process, not a mystery. Rot is not inevitable. Medieval craftsmen knew that wood only decays when three things come together: moisture, oxygen, and food for fungi. The food is sugar and starch inside the wood cells. You know, the medieval anti-rot secret was not just one trick, but rather a sequence of actions, all carefully designed to remove at least one of those three elements permanently. Instead of simply coating wood and hoping for the best, they actually altered the wood itself. They dried it deeper than modern kilns ever could, collapsed the internal cell structure, mineralized the fibers, and sealed the surface in ways that, well, stayed flexible instead of cracking. Each step honestly weakened fungi and insects before they ever arrived. This is why medieval timber doesn't just resist rot, it discourages it from starting at all. Slow seasoning was the foundation that these days modern builders rush past. The first step toward immortal wood, really, was time. Medieval builders seasoned timber for years, not months. Beams were stacked under cover, raised off the ground, and exposed to moving air, but not rain. This slow drying allowed internal moisture to leave without splitting the grain. More importantly, it reduced free sugars that fungi feed on. Modern kiln drying removes water quickly, but leaves sugars intact. Medieval seasoning starved decay before construction even began. You can apply this today by air-drying lumber for outdoor use far longer than recommended. Even an extra 6 to 12 months under cover makes a dramatic difference. Wood that dries slowly becomes denser, harder, and far less welcoming to rot. Beyond air seasoning, medieval builders applied controlled heat. Posts and beams were passed over embers or stored above hearth fires for extended periods. This was not charring. The goal was internal transformation. Heat collapses microscopic tubes inside the wood that normally transport water. Once collapsed, the wood can no longer absorb moisture easily. You know, heat also alters the remaining sugars into compounds that fungi simply cannot digest. Archaeological studies of medieval bridge pilings and buildings, well, they show clear evidence of heat-treated timber. To replicate this today, posts intended for ground contact can be slowly rotated above hot coals until they are hot through, but not blackened. When the wood cools, it resists water like seasoned bone. Where wood touched soil or weather directly, medieval builders often charred it deliberately. Carbonized wood does not rot easily. Insects cannot digest it, fungi struggle to penetrate it, and water beads off instead of soaking in. Medieval fence posts, vineyard stakes and foundation timbers frequently show this treatment. The technique is simple and still effective. Lightly burn the surface, brush off loose char and seal it with oil or tar. This creates a flexible, rot-resistant shell that lasts decades longer than untreated wood. Many posts preserved this way outlast modern pressure-treated lumber by generations. One of the least discussed medieval methods, involved soaking timber in mineral-rich water, especially in bogs, streams, and tannin-heavy environments. Tannins, they bind to wood fibres and create a hostile environment for fungi. Wood recovered from medieval bogs can actually remain intact after 1,000 years because oxygen is excluded and over time minerals replace the vulnerable compounds inside the wood. You can, reproduce this effect by soaking wood in strong tannin solutions made from oak bark or leaves or even in saltwater brine. A few days to a few weeks of soaking, honestly, fundamentally changes how the wood reacts to moisture and decay. The final layer of protection, it came from natural tars and oils. Pine tar, birch tar, and animal oils. They really penetrated deeply into heat-treated wood. Unlike modern paints, these finishes stayed flexible and breathable, which made a world of difference. Water was repelled, but interestingly, moisture inside the wood could still escape. This prevented cracking, and that's honestly where rot usually begins. Medieval ships, roofs, and outdoor structures were, routinely treated this way. For modern use, heating pine tar just a bit before brushing it onto warm wood allows it to soak deep into the fibres. This combination creates wood that sheds rain, resists insects, and, remains stable year after year. No single step made medieval wood legendary. It was the system. Slow seasoning removed moisture and sugars. Heat collapsed water pathways. Charring armoured the surface. Mineral soaking altered internal chemistry. Natural tar sealed without suffocating the wood. Together, these steps produced timber that could survive centuries of exposure. Even applying 2 or 3 of these methods today, dramatically increases lifespan. A fence post treated this way can outlast several replacements. And, a garden structure can become a generational build instead of just a temporary one. Modern building often, prioritizes speed over longevity. But medieval builders, they had no such luxury. Their techniques were born from necessity, and honestly, they worked. By reviving these methods, backyard builders, homesteaders and survivalists can create structures that don't rely on chemicals, don't fail quietly, and don't need constant replacement. This is not nostalgia. It's proven material science, refined by centuries of trial and error. If you value forgotten skills, deep history and practical knowledge that still works in the real world, make sure you subscribe to Backyard Wisdom, share this video with others who care about building things that last, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the old methods that modern construction forgot.